Hello everyone, TK here. I thought that I would talk a little bit about the process of coming up with story, beginning, middle, and end, and some of the things that I've read on various social media posts and in some of the little mini books that you can download for free from so-called experts at writing and self-publishing, etc. I read one post on one of the independent author groups that I'm a member of, in which the author was boasting about the fact that he had outlined his entire book. He had all 50-some chapters named, and I guess he synopsized each one. And now he was going to get to work on actually writing this book. And I said to myself, I guess that's one way to do it. That way I don't think would ever really work for me, because I guess my process of writing begins with an idea, and it begins with a premise that I then kind of have to come up with a beginning and middle to. But to be very honest, I don't even really know when I'm starting to write a novel what the end is going to be. I can say that honestly with the 3 novels I've written so far and the one that I'm in the middle of writing right now. I have an idea and a launching point, and I try to start strong, because my experience in the news business was when you're writing, you have to start strong and you have to save something good for the end, so you end strong as well. I start with my idea and I just kind of let it weave itself through. I really am a believer in letting the story kind of go where it wants to go of its own inertia, if that makes any sense. That's something that actually I kind of feel as I'm writing the story. It starts as an idea, and as I start getting into the characters and kind of creating the people and the situations, I find that the story kind of dictates where it's going to go next. You know, the downside of that is that if you don't have an ending in mind, and if you don't have an outline or a storyboard, your story can end up being pretty disjointed, and it might take you forever to do. My very first novel, which is called Budland, it's only 150 pages, but it took me 10 years to write. Why did it take 10 years to write? Not only was I doing other things at the time I was writing, I was working full-time, and I had a child in the process, and I was moving to another city, etc. But I was stuck for a whole year on how to end that thing. I really didn't know which way to go, which way to take the character. And I finally just kind of reread what I had so far, and I determined that this character we need to end this the way this character would want to end this particular story. And it just kind of made sense to me, and that's the way I ended it, and I don't think I would have gone back and changed it. I did a similar thing with my next 2 novels, and again, the downside is it took longer to finish, and I know this is probably making some of the more organized of you out there cringe, but you know, storyboarding a novel like that, it just doesn't, it kind of ropes you in, and it confines you into a set structure and a set of circumstances and a sequence. And, you know, God forbid if while you're writing, the story takes a left turn and goes into a different place. Now your structure is screwed up, your chapters are screwed up, your storyboard is screwed up, and you kind of feel like maybe not reinventing the wheel, but you have to kind of start reimagining your outline. And, you know, why do that if you don't have an outline to begin with? You don't have to reimagine anything. Here's a little clip that I dug up from an interview that Stephen King did with a Bangor TV station some years ago, in which he talks about the writing process, and he talks about basically what works for him. It's kind of a similar concept, actually.
There's no rationale. You go where the story leads you. And in this case, I had no idea it was going to have a dark conclusion. You know, you were mentioning before we got going Salem's Lot. And when I started that story, I thought to myself, well, this will be the opposite of Dracula, where the good guys win. In this book, the good guys are going to lose, and everybody's going to become a vampire at the end of the book. And that didn't happen because you go where the book leads you, and this one just led me into a very dark place. I didn't even want to go there. I want people to find it out for themselves. You never know. You never know. And sometimes it's a big and powerful machine. The best description of writing a novel that I ever heard is actually in Thomas Williams's book, The Hair of Harold Drew, which is about a novelist trying to write a novel, and it just covers like 1 or 2 days in this process, and a lot of things happen to him. It's a fabulous book. But he says that writing a novel is like building a little campfire on an empty, dark plain, and one by one, these characters come out of the dark, and each one has a little pile of wood, and they put it on the fire, and if you're very lucky, before the fire goes out, it's this big bonfire, and all the characters stand around it and warm themselves. And that's the way it's always been for me.
And that's kind of where I am as well. Believe me, I'm no Stephen King, and I wish I had, 1/1,000,000th of his talent. But his idea that you kind of let the story go where it goes, that actually, I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. It requires a little more patience and a little more faith in your own storytelling ability. But, at the end of the day, when you read it, you may not even remember what you wrote at some point. You start filling in characters and circumstances and storylines. Suddenly, it's a week later, you go back and read what you wrote, and it's like, wow, you can even be amazed that came out of your brain, So I guess the whole point of this podcast episode is to not let yourself be roped in, not let yourself be roped in by some preconceived outline or even a chapter structure, because that can really lead you into a very confined place. If you just start to write and get down what's in your heart and what your idea is and what you're feeling, it's a whole lot better than sitting and obsessing and doing outlines and trying to figure out in a more objective way what you want to write about. Write about what you feel, write from experience, and write for joy, and the rest will come later when you do your second, third draft. So good luck with all that. Let your heart be your guide, and don't let yourself be walled in by too many outlines and too much structure.